Hello, everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Seahawks, the podcast for fans like you. This week, we're going through our reaction episode to our 35-41 loss at the Dallas Cowboys. Hey, guys, let's talk Seahawks.
If we must, and we must, that's what this podcast is. So I guess we have to talk about the Seahawks. A very exciting game. I enjoyed watching almost an entire 50 minutes of it. For those of you that don't know, games are 60 minutes. The last 10 minutes of this game I could have done without. I probably could have done with more than that just because of all the penalty flags thrown in this game. There were plenty of times when I wanted to just turn it off. But the late in the fourth quarter, and I knew it was going to happen. In my head, I was just waiting for it. I'm always kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop with his team this season. That's it's part of being a Seattle sports fan is just waiting for for the bad news, and it happened. After getting away with I think a couple of passes that probably should have been picked off. Geno finally did throw a bad enough pass well enough that that Bland, who is leading the league in interceptions this year and pick sixes, got his shot and made it count. Obviously, the Cowboys go ahead and score a field goal on that possession, which is one thing of note. And I know we're going to talk about stats later, but it should be of note that our defense has not given up a touchdown off of a turnover this season. And that's going to be important to remember when we go in and talk about the rest of this game, because the defense obviously didn't do a great job giving up 41 points. But I think it's important to know that our defense has done its job when it's needed to, or when it's had to, because it's had to do its job and someone else's job a lot this season. So, yeah, that's my initial thoughts, is that this game was very winnable, far more winnable than I think any of us anticipated it to be for the Seahawks. But of course, we still found a way to coug it, as they say in the Northwest here, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. So.
Yeah, I think that's pretty spot on there, Adam. Welcome, James, to the show. For those of you who caught the preview show, James was our resident Cowboys fan, coming in to give us the enemy perspective, so to speak. But he's back with us to recap this game. I'm sure he feels a little differently about this game than we do.
Come on, baby. Come on. I think my biggest takeaway from the whole game is, even if our top 5 defense sucks it up a night, our offense can come in clutch. So, and then our defense honestly performed in clutch times. They when they needed to, they made it happen. Bland was getting destroyed by Metcalf. I mean, destroyed. I don't know how many yards Metcalf had, but I mean, it put Bland. He started feeling horrible after he had that 70-yard bomb launched on him. I was like, oh, Lord. And then another follow-up of a really long run, too. I was like, oh, no. So Bland got his. I felt good about that. He's back on the wagon, thank God, because he did not look good that game. And then you got Micah Parsons just coming in clutch. And we'll talk more about that later, I'm sure. But
was it really a case of Micah Parsons coming in clutch, or our offensive coordinator taking his foot off the clutch?
A little bit of both. I feel very good about that. So, yes, thank you for the presents. It's a little early for Christmas, but we're excited about that. So, overall, I think, defenses, they say defenses win championships, but ultimately, with me, I think our offense picked up the slack there. So, yeah, made me feel good.
Yeah, definitely.
It was 134, by the way. That's how many yards DK put up this game.
Bless it.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure 110 of them were on Bland.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you have to give him credit. I mean, he had added another interception to his NFL leading stat. Correct me if I'm wrong, but his 5 interception returns for touchdown, isn't that an NFL record, or at least tied the record?
6 now, I think.
It's 6, and it's the record. I think it's 6. Yeah. But yeah.
Great season. I mean, he is. If he doesn't win Defensive Player of the Year, someone needs to have an outrageous end of the season.
I was going to say TJ Watt's putting in a case for it too. There's plenty of good players out there, but and he's also got a teammate who may end up stealing it from out from under him, which in Micah Parsons. So it's a big ask, but certainly after having to step into the starting lineup to take over for the injured Diggs, he has more than made up for that. So yeah, no, he's having a great season.
Yeah, and the interception he did get, sure, Geno Smith threw the ball a little bit behind where he should have, but I think that was a great individual effort by Bland. Like he became the wide receiver on that and got in there and got that pass. So
yeah, I mean he tracked the ball beautifully. I mean that's the thing he's proven this season is he can find the ball with the best of them when it's in the air and take advantage of it. And certainly he located that ball before our receiver did, and he obviously got there too before the receiver did. So
for me, this game was. I went into it with not very positive. I predicted the Seahawks were going to lose. I said they could win, but they're going to need some help. Obviously, Jason Myers missed a field goal. We'll talk about that later. The defense couldn't stop anybody, as seen from the 41 points the Cowboys put up on the board. So they didn't get the help where they needed help. Offense outperformed themselves. I mean, the offense played great. So it was really an up and down game for me. Well, yeah, I have. If you look at the previous 3 games, the offense played great.
Yeah, compared to where our bar has been thus far this season, for the most part, yeah, I'll agree with you on that, Rob. Compared to what we have been seeing from this offense played great.
Yeah. So let's real quick review our 5 keys to success that we set down on a preview show. And just see how the Seahawks stacked up against this talented Cowboys team.
I have a feeling.
Yeah. So our first key to success was multiple tight end sets. This has worked for us in the past. This is a really good idea when you're going against a blitz-heavy team or a team with a really highly rated pass rush unit. So the metric on that, we had fewer than 30% sets in 11 personnel. Well, we failed that dramatically. We were in 11 personnel the entire game, just feeding into what the Cowboys love to do. Bland probably should have had 3 interceptions in this game, and all of those came out of 11 personnel. So, which is what he's been doing. I mean, that's how he's been eating. I think all but one of his interceptions have come from opposing teams playing in 11 personnel. So, Seahawks failed this one big time, and why wouldn't you run multiple tight end sets? Have a couple extra blockers out there against one of the NFL's leading pass rush units. I mean, why not? I don't know. Apparently Shane Waldron doesn't think the Seahawks needed extra blockers.
Well, obviously, Robbie, our offensive line has been playing just lights out the last several weeks, so they clearly have not needed any help to set those edges, and so rightly so, Shane Waldron, our elite offensive coordinator, opted to just continue to put them out there on an island to take on one of the league's deadliest pass rushes, and certainly one of the top 3 we're going to see this season and in the next 3 weeks. So yeah, it was a brilliant move. Look, we knew that it was very unlikely that we were going to see us go to 12 and 13 personnel more often this game, because that hasn't been the way the Seahawks have operated thus far this season. I think we're one of the highest percentages as far as teams go of being in 11 personnel. And again, I mean, we've talked about it ad nauseum on this podcast. We have an elite tight end room. They've proven it. They proved it down the stretch last season. They've proven it every game we've utilized them correctly this season, and yet we still seem to forget that. Our former tight end coach, offensive coordinator, seems to forget that he has an elite tight end room every single week. I know we said we're not going to turn this into the We Hate Shane Waldron podcast, but just this, and then of course the ultimate, the final play of the game, or at least offensively for the Seahawks, really makes me want to call for Shane Waldron's head. Oh, we seem to have lost James.
Yeah, let's see if he comes back. Yeah, I don't know what to say. I will say that I was trying to keep the Shane Waldron criticism to a minimum. I can already tell that's probably not going to happen.
It's not.
It's not. So our second key to success was to take the gifts. And this is relating to that defense, right? They're a stout defense. They cover really well. You need to complete short and intermediate passes against this defense to even have a chance. So take the gifts. Metric on this was Geno Smith having above a 65% completion percentage because he's dinking and dunking, getting 2, 3, 4, 5 yards at a time. That's it. That wasn't really the case. So I have to say this is a long answer for whether or not we passed or failed this particular metric. So Geno Smith's completion percentage for the game was a 56.1. So that was not 65.
No, that's the inverse, actually. Of it.
Yeah. But if you look at PFF's adjusted completion percentage, this is a number that takes into account aimed passes downfield. So you get rid of balls that are thrown away and dealing with things like that. You count drops as completions because that's not on the quarterback. So with all that said and done, Geno Smith had a 74.3 adjusted completion percentage. So I'm going to say Geno Smith passes, but Shane Waldron does not pass because he wasn't able to scheme up a good defense for that Cowboys pass rush. And really the team got blasted.
Yeah, I mean, there's no two ways about it. This was even despite the points that this offense put up, it wasn't a very successful day for our offense. I mean, this may be one of the worst games that this Cowboys defense has played this season, and we didn't take advantage of it. I know that's funny saying, considering we put up 35 points, but this game was ours to win. I mean, it was to be had. This game was wide open, and the way this defense was playing, the Cowboys defense was playing, especially early in the game and into the third quarter. We should have taken this one running away, and obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah, and James sends his best. He got some technological issues and got kicked off the stream. He's trying to come back in. We'll see if we can get those issues fixed. If not,
Sorry.
It's just Adam and I. So.
No, yeah. Well,
but he said, the show must go on. Keep chugging through, and if he can make it back in, he'll make it back in. All right. Number 3 was have a balanced offense. This is one of those that we could probably just write in permanent ink for the Seahawks because they have a really hard time approaching a balanced offense or even utilizing sets properly to come close, right? So I said for this, my metric is I want 24 called run plays. We knew, or at least we on this podcast knew, and I'm willing to bet the majority of Seahawks Nation out there knew that in order to have success against the Cowboys, we needed to have the play action game. The only way you can set up play action passes is to run the ball. So I said, okay, under that understanding, let's run the ball 24 times. Based on our average plays in a game, based on the way that our team has performed, 24 was a pretty good number to get us close to that 55% pass, 45% run metric. So let's see how they did. Well, I have them as a big old fail off that 24 because we had 21 total rushes, and I'm relatively confident that Geno Smith's rushing touchdown was not a called running play. So
fairly confident, yeah.
We're just going to go ahead and say that they did not have that balanced offense. Now, Zach Charbonnet went down at the end of this game. I don't know if that played into it. I mean, they still went to DJ Dallas when it mattered most. So you can't really say that they weren't confident in him running the ball if they were confident in him on 4th and 2 with the game on the line. So, yeah, here we go. We failed on that balanced offense.
Yeah, I mean, we've been failing all season on the balance off. I think we've had one game where we hit the metric that we were looking for. I have a question for you, Robbie. Does Kenny McIntosh actually exist? Is this just something is this something I dreamed up or we dreamed up during the draft? The Seahawks did spend a 2nd-round pick on Kenny McIntosh. Is this correct?
7th round pick. Yeah. I mean, you and I watched the draft. We live streamed it, so I'm pretty sure.
So he is on the roster, right? He's no longer on IR, and he was active for game day.
He was, yes, definitely not.
How many snaps did he get on offense?
I don't have it in front of me, but I don't remember seeing him. So I'm going to go with 0.
The answer is 0. He had 0 snaps on offense. He's had 0 snaps on offense, and I believe he's been active for 3 games. I know that he hasn't had as much time in the offense, and maybe we're not as confident in his abilities within this offense as we are in someone like DJ Dallas. But this offense needed a spark late in that game to get something going. This kid was an elite playmaker his last year in college. Over 900 rushing yards, I believe over 800 receiving yards. This kid is a playmaker. And this may be the only time. I mean, we had an opportunity to use him in this game. You know, our 2 leading rushers are down. Obviously Kenneth Walker not available for this game, and Zach Charbonnet went down in the 4th. And yet he still couldn't get on the field. So are we sure that he exists? Is my question.
I don't know. You'd think perhaps they would have a guy out there who had 0 drops in his entire collegiate career when we were trying to push the ball down the field. Now, he's a rookie, which would have been his first real game action. I can understand not wanting to put a rookie in that position, but why they didn't have him in a few plays earlier in the game just to get his feet wet, that's sort of beyond me. What I do say is we better see him in the next couple of weeks, because
we've only got what 6 weeks left, or 5 weeks left of the season. So you would think we'd want to see him some point before the season's over. We seem to. We've talked about it and said we've talked about the talent on this team, how insanely loaded we are on both sides of the ball, and I've had some issues with the way the defense has been called this season, but for the most part, I've been okay with how we utilized our talent there, minus, of course, Kobe Bryant getting more playing time. I just don't understand why we can't utilize this plethora of weapons we have on offense correctly, because it's the reason that we're failing at this game. When we spread the ball around, this offense looks great. I mean, yes, it's always awesome seeing DK take the top off of defense the way he did in this game. Getting up to 22 plus miles an hour on the field. But when we spread the ball around to the 9+ pass catchers we have, that's what this offense should be doing. And we've got at least 2 guys, if not more, in the backfield that have amazing hands and can make plays. And it'd be really nice if we could just utilize them the way that they should be utilized.
Yeah, I agree. And that was 22.23 miles per hour, which is number 1 in the NFL for a ball carrier this season.
Insane.
Yeah, insane. He put his track training to use, and it really showed off. So that was an amazing catch and run there in the first quarter.
Yeah.
Our 4th key to success, we'll do these pretty quick, was lockdown defense. Right? We needed to play lockdown defense because the Cowboys have a top offense in this league. In fact, I believe they're the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL.
They are the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL.
So I said, we need to have lockdown defense. We need to below 24 points, right? Hold them to 24 points allowed. Well, they decided to put up 41 on us, so that did not happen. Big ol' fail on that one. But I also didn't expect our offense to play the way they did. So if I knew our offense was going to come out and actually play like an NFL offense, then perhaps I would have reined that metric in a little bit, maybe given a little bit more of a cushion. But I would have never said keep them under 42 points. So they would have failed this regardless.
Yeah, look, I think this is, I can't remember if I texted you this after the game or where this came up in conversation, but we are asking too much of our defense. No, they didn't play great in this game, and we've certainly had games where our defense has been a liability. I mean, go back and look at the Ravens game. But the job of a defense in football, at least the way I see it, and you can say what you want about this. I mean, you're obviously a little bit more up as far as the analytics of a game, but the way I see it, a defense's job is to give an offense an opportunity to win the game. Just don't let it get out of hand. Like keep it close enough that your offense can have an opportunity to win the game. And our defense gave us plenty of opportunities to win this game. No, we didn't get the big turnover, and the defense didn't score any points. But we were in this game until we weren't, and we were in this game literally into the last minute of the game. Our defense gave us the opportunities we needed. The offense once again failed to take advantage of those opportunities. Yeah, we can talk about and I know we'll talk about the Jason Myers kick in a little bit, but the offense has got to be better about taking advantage of opportunities that we get. I mean, one of our keys was take the gifts. This defense was gifting us enough time with the ball on offense. We had an opportunity to win this game, and the offense is what failed to win this game, not the defense. I know 41 points seems like a lot to overcome, but again, they gave this offense an opportunity to win this game. We had the ball in our hands with a chance to go down and win it in the fourth quarter twice, and we failed.
I'm going to disagree with you on one of those points.
Go ahead.
And that was that their defense gifted us enough time to get things done. There was a graphic that was put up on the primary broadcast at kind of halfway through the third quarter, maybe towards the end of the third quarter, that said 9 of the 13 pressures on Geno Smith came in under 2.5 seconds. And that was at that point in the game. So we know he definitely faced more pressure towards the end of the game. And a lot of those came in under 2.5 seconds. So I'm not going to say their defense gave our offense enough time. What we should have done is schemed protections in a way that afforded Geno Smith the opportunity to take those short to intermediate routes. And that just wasn't happening. We didn't have tight ends chipping. We didn't have running backs chipping as much as they should have. We weren't running the ball enough to be able to use play action. Because when you can run the ball, those edge rushers have to be aware of the run game. Because if they just blow past on their way to the quarterback and he just handed the ball off, now the defense is down 2 players trying to stop a ball carrier. So we were allowing them to pin their ears back and just run because we were ineffective in the run game, and we weren't calling run plays with enough frequency to help out our offense. So I will disagree with you in the defense gave us time.
Look, so I guess the point you're trying to make is that giving a pass rusher of Micah Parsons' caliber a free shot at the quarterback on an absolutely must have at 4th and 2, you think that was a bad call, is what you're saying?
Oh, 100%. And I have an entire 4th down segment coming up later where we will discuss all 3 of those 4th downs that the Seahawks attempted.
Great.
All right. I believe our 5th and final key to success. Sorry, this segment dragged on a little longer than I intended.
Yeah, that's my fault.
Keep up the pressure. We needed to pressure Dak Prescott. He's been great against pressure this year, but he's been better with no pressure, so you might as well apply pressure.
He's just been great this year.
Yeah, he's having a fantastic season. So the metric for success on this was I wanted greater than 25 total pressures. In the first half, it was beautiful. We were pressuring him left and right. We had multiple guys getting in on the action. But in that second half, the Cowboys made an adjustment because a good coaching staff will look at the information given to them and provide adjustments to the plan in order to succeed. And the Cowboys were able to do that with their blocking scheme in the second half. So for the game, our total pressures, we failed this. We're close but no cigar, right? 23 total pressures, which broke down to 4 sacks, 3 hits, 16 hurries, and 1 batted pass.
Not a bad game for a defense, just not enough.
Yeah, and that's my exact point here. Is they may have failed by my metric, but it's heads and tails better than 49ers, which I think they had 9 pressures for the whole game. So we are trending in the right direction. Now let's capitalize in these next 2 weeks and then to finish out the season in order to be where we need to be. Yes, fingers crossed, there is still a chance. I would like to say real quick before we continue on that the Seahawks did face 2 of their former coordinators in this matchup, with Brian Schottenheimer as the offensive coordinator for the Cowboys and I just forgot. Yes, Dan Quinn as the defensive coordinator. Now, Dan Quinn left the Seahawks due to getting a head coaching job at the Falcons, right? So you can't fault him for leaving there. I'm going to fault the franchise for letting Schottenheimer go. I think I liked the Schottenheimer offenses. I know some people didn't like some of the variety that was there. They thought it was a little vanilla, but what I saw was fundamental football. So, which is kind of what I preach. Run the ball, complete passes, set up play action, take shots when they're available to you. Don't rely on them.
Yeah, look, I mean, you know, especially it's a bit ironic coming off of all the kind of hate we've been spewing Shane Waldron's way this year with the podcast. The offensive coordinator on this team always has a lot of pressure put on them. You know, that's kind of what you get when you have a defensive-minded head coach. Yep. The offense is yours. I mean, it's all about you. I mean, yeah, Pete Carroll has his philosophy on offense, but for the most part, he has let his offensive coordinators do what they're going to do. To his detriment, sometimes I would think, and I think we can say that that's happened this season. You know, I mean, Schottenheimer got us to the playoffs. I think every year he was here as the offensive coordinator. And we went to 2 Super Bowls when Schottenheimer was here as offensive coordinator. So yeah, certainly he had his moments when you want to go, the hell was that? But he is in no way a bad offensive coordinator.
No. And I think we're seeing that with the Cowboys. All right. So one of the biggest topics coming out of this game was the performance by the NFL officiating crew. Now, I sent a tweet partially through the first quarter, which was like, oh, it's nice to see the NFL provided a Dallas home team as the officiating crew for this. It's nice to see that they got to play close to home, because that's how they were calling this game. If I want to be a homer for the subject. And in fact,
I mean, there was a false start called pretty early in the game that I threw my hat at, because that was an interesting choice by the refs to throw a flag on that. Our center, Evan Brown, did a check back with the quarterback, which is, you know, looked back underneath his legs to make sure the quarterback was standing behind him, ready to accept the snap, which, as far as I know, is not grounds for a false start in the NFL. And yet they still decided to throw the flag. Kind of funny that they didn't throw the flag at least, you know, another 35 times in the game, because we saw both centers do that several more times in the game.
Yeah. So I was like, I kind of want to see what everybody's talking about here. I mean, I watched the game. I obviously saw what everybody was talking about, but Pete Carroll brought it up in the post-game press conference. He said, and I quote, "There was a whole other factor in this game. You guys saw more than we did. too many penalties. So that is about as, I mean, the NFL might even fine him for that.
They might.
But it's true, right? They were playing a whole nother team on that field. And the Cowboys were too. There were calls that went against the Cowboys that should not have been calls. There were missed calls that would have benefited the Cowboys that weren't called. This was not just an anti-Seahawks crew. This wasn't Super Bowl 40.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Not quite Super Bowl 40. They're not calling your quarterback for a block in the back after trying to tackle a guy after an interception. But 19 penalties in this game.
Yeah.
19 total penalties, which I believe is the most in any game this season. And that's a lot. I mean, the Seahawks were already in the top 3 or 4, or certainly top 5 when it comes to taking penalties this season, and we are now clearly in first place with 10 penalties taken in that game.
Yeah, it's crazy. All right, so Pete Carroll called out the league in the presser. He went further to say that there are inconsistencies across all the coverage calls, and that was something that will be a priority for him in the postseason, meaning when they have all those meetings, when, there's input back and forth. Let's hope it happens. Officiating is difficult. I don't have NFL or college officiating experience, but I have been an official at the high school level. And it is difficult. There are judgment calls, but that's why every official has particular keys that they watch. And those officials are responsible for certain things. That's why when you see a catch down the sideline, you see the officials look at each other, because one of them is watching the sideline to make sure the feet stayed in bounds, and the other one is watching the catch to make sure that the ball was secured prior to them going out of bounds. They check with each other and say whether or not that was a catch by both providing the information that they are bringing to that decision. It did not seem like this crew communicated very well. And so I wanted to actually look at this and say, how bad was it? Were these legitimate calls or legitimate no calls? What was going on? So I did. I went through the whole game again, and I charted out every penalty that was flagged, right? It was picked up, declined, whatever, and a few egregious missed penalties that I saw. And I will say before I go into this, there was an offensive pass interference against DK Metcalf that would have benefited the Cowboys. That was not called. I didn't chart it because I was kind of like, oh, I wonder if that was or not. And as I continued thinking, it deserved to be on this list. So there's one for you guys, Cowboys. DK Metcalf definitely should have had an offensive pass interference call in this game. I believe he was fighting back for the ball, and he basically body checked the guy. So, all right. So start off. This flag was picked up. Normally, I like when they wave off flags because that means they brought more information to the table. This was the first quarter. Dallas had the ball, 10:48 on the play clock, or 10:48 on the clock. The flag was waved off. It would have been illegal contact on Jamal Adams. It was a good call because the Cowboys receiver, this one might have been Gallup, I'm not sure, came down, initiated the contact with Jamal Adams, who then responded with contact. So they both were contacting. They waved it off. Good, no call. Then we had the next one. Hold on, let me set this up so it's easier to get through. In the first quarter, Seahawks had the ball, 7:56 on the clock, 3rd and 3. False start on Evan Brown. Adam just went through that. I rated this as a bad call. Right, the center is allowed to look behind him. It should have been called encroachment because the reason they called it is because there was a defender in the neutral zone coming through the line of scrimmage as Evan Brown looked at the quarterback. So the right guard, I believe it was Bradford at that time, gave him the "we're good to go." He looked to make sure he had an aiming point to snap the ball. At that point, it should have been offsides or encroachment because he literally touched the offensive players. Okay, so that's a bad call. The next one was a missed call. First quarter, Dallas had the ball, 6:12 on the clock, 3rd and 16. There's a blatant hold by number 63 on Jaron Reed, and it was egregious. Like, he just climbed behind him. Like, when you go and you hug your significant other from behind and it's like that warm, loving kind of I'm here kind of hug.
You're saying that's the kind of hug it was?
That's the kind of hug it was.
Oh.
Yes, it was bad. All right. So that didn't happen. Dallas on that play, Dak Prescott was able to boot out to the left, find a receiver downfield, converted that 3rd and 16 when really it should have been a holding call. That's a bad missed call. All right. First quarter, Dallas had the ball, 5:28, 1st and 10. Pass interference on Tariq Woolen for 47 yards. The next play was a Dallas touchdown because that brought them down into the red zone. I hate to say it, that was a good call. Good call. Woolen has to locate the ball or play the man. You can't just be lost and then climb on top of the receiver. So that was a good call. Sucks for the Seahawks, but it is what it is.
That's let me stop you for a sec because this is something I was going to pose to you and I forgot to text it to you. Is Tariq Woolen a liability in coverage right now?
No. Short answer is no.
Okay.
He is doing some things that he wasn't doing last year. Like I think he's thinking too much. Last year he was playing more on instinct. There wasn't much pressure. He was a rookie. Yeah, sure, he was having a good season, but nobody expected anything. But now he's coming off of that season where he should have where he should have got second place in Defensive Rookie of the Year because Aiden Hutchinson should have won it. And so everybody's expecting that caliber of play, and I think it's getting to him. So he just needs to do fundamental things, right? Drop his hips if he knows he's going to jam because you're 6'4", and there's not a ton of 6'4" receivers you're going to face. He needs to play the man if he doesn't have position to play the ball, which is what happened here. He just got lost. And so, when in doubt, maul the guy. It works in college because it's only a 15-yard penalty, but here gave up 47 yards. So that one hurt the Seahawks.
I only asked because I believe this is the 3rd time that he's given up a pass interference penalty that's put a team in the red zone and ended up with scoring a touchdown. So,
but he's not the only one.
No, he's not. But with 0 picks, I believe he has 0 picks this year.
He has 1.
Sorry, he has 1.
Yeah.
You could forgive some of his missteps as a rookie because of what he brought to the game as far as the turnover margin, and that hasn't been a factor for him this season. And I agree with you that he's definitely too much in his head and not playing on instinct like he should be. But I just thought I'd throw that out there to you because I'm thinking about kind of going back and looking at some of his games because thus far this season, when we've heard his name, it has not been a good thing. Whereas last year when we heard his name, it was usually because he'd made a big play.
He's also being targeted more this year than he was last year.
Well, I mean, I would target him more too.
Yeah. Well, he was the shutdown guy. And so a lot of balls went over to Mike Jackson last year. And this year, Devin Witherspoon is playing lights out. So where are you going to go? Well, you're going to target Trey Brown when he comes on the field. But in the normal set where it's just those two guys out there, you're going to take Woolen over Witherspoon.
Yeah.
That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, this next penalty was declined. First quarter. See, even the dog has something to say about it. So 4 minutes, 5 seconds on the clock, 2nd and 10, holding on DK Metcalf. This one was declined because the Cowboys won a 3rd down in the red zone. I don't know. The Seahawks ended up scoring on this drive. So it is what it is. It was a good call. DK clearly held. He needs to get better at getting his hands inside the frame of the guy that he's blocking. That way, even if he does hold, it's a little hidden. He's been doing this, getting outside the shoulder, getting up on top of those shoulder pads, and they're going to call that holding every single time. It's almost an exact mirror of a holding call DK Metcalf had 3 or 4 weeks ago. All right. First down. This is that same drive. First quarter, 3:38 on the clock, 3rd and 10. Dallas number 56 offsides. Ended up setting up 3rd and 5, which leads us to the next call, which was missed. And that was first quarter. Seahawks had the ball. 1 minute, 1 second on the clock, 3rd and 5. Missed holding on Damian Lewis. Right? I said some of these are going to go the Seahawks way. Some of these are going to go Cowboys way. It was a bad missed call. right? It would have backed up the Seahawks field goal attempt. I mean, he basically just rode the guy down. Like, it was not a good situation, bad miss by the refs. Would have backed up the field goal attempt. Then, now same drive, right? First quarter, Seahawks had the ball, 1:01 on the clock. This was the next play, 4th and 5, delay of game. This is the call Pete Carroll was very upset about during that post-game press conference.
For good reason. For very good reason. Yeah, so I mean, for those of you that saw it, I mean, we were getting ready for a field goal. Took them about 12 to 15 seconds, I think, to get the ball placed. Generally, you do not start the clock until the ball is placed. The play clock doesn't start until it's out of the ref's hands and into the offense's hands. That didn't happen here. We assumed, and again, I can see where you could probably put some of this blame back on the Seahawks coaching staff, and I will in this case, because they made the assumption that the clock was going to get reset rather than just taking a timeout and discussing it with the officials or getting involved in that way. They let the clock go ahead and run out thinking, oh, they're going to reset the clock. They didn't. We ended up getting charged for a delay of game and pushing us back. And that ultimately, obviously, ended up being the missed field goal by Jason Myers. Yeah, I agree with Pete. It definitely should have been reset, because that's what happens when the officials take too long putting the ball down or setting the ball, is the play clock gets reset generally. However, this isn't the first time that something like this has happened. It isn't even the first time this has happened to the Seahawks. So I will say that our coaching staff needs to be better about being proactive in such situations rather than reactive, which is what they were.
Yeah, and what's bad is the NFL came out and defended this action. They have a post-game report that the officials file, basically explaining every call and
things like that.
So the white hat, I believe his name is like Cleve Blakeland, something like that, Blakeman, something along those lines.
It's clearly
he said he was
name.
Too busy because he was checking in eligible, reportable eligible players, because it's due to the nature of the formation of a field goal. Certain guys have to check in as eligible. But you've done that every single field goal of your NFL referee career.
How is that an excuse? I'm confused as to how did that was his justification? How's that?
He said he was too busy worrying about it. The kicking ball was placed, ready to go. Like, we get the kicking ball in every time. We know what we're doing, is basically what the thing was.
But they didn't get the kicking ball in.
They didn't. They got it set with about 12 seconds. And generally, if it gets set after 20, they'll reset it. So
yes, there's a thing called a minimum play clock for a reason.
Well, it's in Madden, but
yes, but there's a reason why the play clock has a minimum, because Madden realizes that it takes time to snap a ball and get everybody set on your offensive line. The NFL refs need to realize that it takes even more time in real life when you actually have 12 guys that have to communicate as opposed to an AI communicating. So that sounds like the worst excuse I've ever heard in my life. Why did you run the stop sign? Well, I was texting, and I always text and drive, and I usually still stop. So, you got to give me a pass.
Yeah, that's basically his explanation for that call.
Yeah,
he very easily, it could have been flagged. They could have got together and he said, "We didn't reset the game clock. Please put blah 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 on the game clock. That's on us." All right, so that was a bad call. I'm going to do these a little quicker because this is turning into a marathon segment. So next penalty was waved off. Second quarter, Dallas, 3rd and 2. Offensive pass interference. It's a good call. The contact initiated through the line of scrimmage and it carried out into the field. Both players were contacting. It didn't affect anything. It was a good non-call. All right, second quarter, Dallas had the ball, 1st and goal. Ineligible man downfield, number 73. It was a good call. He was 3 or 4 yards past the line of scrimmage. He firmly had both feet in the end zone, and I think the ball was on the 2-yard line. So clearly past the line. All right, second quarter, Seahawks had the ball, 1st and 10. Defensive pass interference on an underthrown ball to Lockett. honestly, what's the defensive back going to do? Right. That was a 40-yard penalty that went against the Cowboys. So yay for the Seahawks, but technically it was a good call. But it's one of those that suck for everybody on the wrong side of it. We definitely had some of those as well this year. All right. Second quarter, Seahawks, 3rd and goal. Defensive pass interference. This was a good call. This was on Stephon Gilmore. Grabbed JSN's collar at the top of his break and pulled. So you actually saw JSN pull with him as he went to break. Good call. People in the stadium didn't like it, but when you got down to it, it was good.
I could see that. I mean, look, illegal contact is anything that's past 5 yards and reroutes the receiver, anything that changes the receiver's motion. I mean, by textbook, that's what this was.
Yep, textbook impediment of the receiver, 100%. All right, the next penalty was declined. Dallas had the ball in the second quarter, 2nd and goal. Offensive holding on number 73. It was a good call. It was also a good foul by the offensive lineman because Draymond Jones stunted inside and had a free rush at Dak Prescott, who happened to be stepping up into that hole at that time. So Prescott probably would have just been lit up, absolutely destroyed on this play. So you really have to give a shout out to Smith there for pulling Draymond Jones down and getting that penalty because he saved his quarterback a few bruises.
Yeah, look, sometimes, and we see this all the time in a game. Like sometimes you have to take the penalty. Like I mean, even on deep PI calls, I mean, sometimes you got to take the penalty because if you don't do what you did, then it's probably a touchdown by the opposing team, or in this case, a quarterback with one less leg. So yeah, every once in a while, taking a penalty is fine. I'm not going to fault a guy for taking that penalty just to keep his quarterback from having a 360-pound man fall on him.
All right, so I'm going to do this in fast mode. Second quarter, Dallas had the ball, 4th and goal, offensive holding. It was a good call. Pushed Dallas back. They ended up kicking a field goal after that. Second quarter, Dallas, 1 minute 30. This was after the field goal. Personal foul against Cam Young on the Seahawks there, pushing and shoving. You can't do that. Second quarter, Seahawks had the ball, 36 seconds left in the half. 1st and 10. 2 penalties against the defense. Illegal contact, which was declined, and then offsides. So good set there. The offsides was clearly the guy jumped early. There was no question about it. Same drive, next play, or 2 plays later. Seahawks had the ball, 29 seconds, 2nd and 5. Offsides, the player lined up in the neutral zone, clear as day. Good call. Seahawks had the ball, 13 seconds, 1st and 10. Defensive pass interference in the end zone. This was a good call on Bland. He grabbed and turned JSN, but it was a bad call on reversing the touchdown because when I know the tip of the ball hit the ground, I get it, but the ball didn't move. So I don't know. I'm a little salty. DK ended up finishing that drive, getting that touchdown, but it should have been JSN's. And that might be important JSN to get a touchdown.
Important to say we actually got 3 tries on that touchdown because the very next play after the ball was placed on the 1-yard line, we had a touchdown to tight end Noah Fant that was called back because apparently little gamesmanship by the Dallas Cowboys coach calling timeout right when they snapped the ball.
Yep. Exactly. All right, moving on to the second half. So you can see kind of how that flowed in the first half. There were quite a few penalties, quite a few successive penalties on drives too, which kind of became a theme here in the third quarter. So third quarter, Seahawks had the ball. There was a face mask on defense number 14. I didn't catch that player's name. I should have looked it up before this. It was a good call. He grabbed clear turn of the head. Textbook. Next call was declined. Seahawks had the ball. 3rd and goal. Defensive holding. Now, I never saw a replay of this. They didn't show it on the broadcast. I looked at the all-22. I saw where I think it happened, but it wasn't close enough. The camera wasn't close enough that I could actually see what happened. So I'm just going to give that a neutral. I'm going to say it's a good call, but it was declined, so it doesn't really matter. I'm going to err on the side of the officials. All right. Third quarter, Dallas had the ball, 1st and 10, defensive holding on Trey Brown. This was a bad call. This was a theme in this game where these referees need to understand that defensive backs are allowed to find the receiver. They're not allowed to grab. They're not allowed to forcibly make contact. But I can reach out and find where you are because I'm tracking the ball. I'm looking at other things. I can find where you are with my hand. I can't grab you. I can't push you. Right? But they need to figure out what a hand is. When I coach defensive backs, I used to coach them to find with the back of the hand.
Right.
Because then you're not tempted to grab. And it's really quick to just flip the hand over if you need to get a hold of that player. So it's mainly a trick that I picked up to help players who had a tendency to grab, not grab as much. But that was a bad call. And I think the Cowboys even got hit for this in this game too, when it shouldn't have been. I know the Seahawks got hit for it again later on.
Yeah, we did.
So the next one, Dallas had the ball, offsides and Boyamafe. Yeah, it was a good call. Once again, he was there. Third quarter, Dallas had the ball, 1st and 5, holding on Woolen. This is a bad call with questionable judgment. Woolen had his hand on CeeDee Lamb, and it was very obviously CeeDee Lamb was very obviously pushing off of Woolen to create separation at the top of his break. That's offensive pass interference. Then Woolen, who now has to make up that space that was just created, gets back, and he goes through CeeDee Lamb early before the ball even gets there. That's defensive pass interference. Neither pass interference was called, but rather there was a phantom holding call that never happened. And instead of offsetting penalties to replay the down, we have an automatic Cowboys first down. So you got to see what's out there, and these guys aren't stepping up to the plate. All right, still the third quarter. Dallas had the ball, 2nd and 10. Defensive pass interference on Bobby Wagner. On B-Wags. Now, I was furious at this call when it happened. I was furious along with KJ Wright on his post-game show, like post-game live stream, when he was furious about this call. I was right there with him. Then I went and watched the tape. And technically, it was the correct call. Technically, if you use slow motion and you slow this down to a speed in which no human has the ability to do live, you can see that Bobby Wagner gets to that receiver. I believe it was Pollard on this play early. He gets there early, and then the ball comes down and bounces by Pollard's feet. There's a question of whether or not that ball was catchable to begin with. Definitely part of the equation for pass interference that you've been seen lacking throughout the league this year is they kind of forget that it has to be an impediment to the receiver or the defender, right? If it's offensive pass interference, but the ball also has to be in a catchable position. Is the trajectory of the ball going to fall somewhere within the catch radius of that receiver along the path that they're running for that route? These are problems that need to get fixed. But technically, I'm going to say that was a correct call. I'm going to put it in the correct call category for the officials when this all shakes out. Still the third quarter. Dallas, 2nd and 13. Illegal contact on Trey Brown. Sorry, Seahawks fans. This was a good call. Though it was also the 4th first down by penalty on this Dallas drive. So this was a good one. They deserve this first down. Some of those other ones we just went through, they definitely should not have been called the way they were. Funny how, when the Cowboys were down, I believe they were down by 8 points at this point. How things work out in their favor. NFL, I'm talking to you. Please, if you have a problem with this, give me a call or send us an email. Trust me, your PR knows how to get a hold of me. All right. Still third quarter. Dallas had the ball. 5 minutes, 18 seconds. 2nd and 13. That was the one that I just said, so never mind. All right, this next one, third quarter. Seahawks at the ball. 14 seconds on the clock. This was waved off. This is the one that I jumped up and threw things at. This was the face mask by number 95 Hankins on DJ Dallas. So nobody called it. And then I believe it was either the side judge or the line judge. I forget what side it came in from. Throws this flag like, come on, guys. What the heck are you guys seeing? They get together and discuss it. they pick up and wave off that flag.
Yeah.
Now, he clearly uses DJ Dallas's helmet to make this tackle. Clearly.
Yeah.
Now, maybe his hands didn't wrap around individual pieces of the face mask, but those of us that have hands but those of us that have hands that cannot palm a basketball, right? I fit into this category. Me and Kenny Pickett, we both fit into this category.
Nice.
So we've all of us in there, we've all put the ball in our hand and then like kind of pressed it against our forearm to create that other point of contact so that we can pretend like we got hops or something. Hey, listen, I'm 5'7", 5'8" on a good day. And I could, in my youth, I could hang on the rim, but I never was able to get up enough to dunk a basketball. But still, that didn't stop me from trying to look cool. All right. So that was that same kind of situation. He basically palmed DJ Dallas's helmet, had the forearm across the face mask, and DJ Dallas nearly got his head popped off like a bottle of soda. This was crazy. I was upset then. I'm upset now talking about it.
Yeah, I don't know how you pick up. I can understand maybe no one's like if just the way the bodies were on the field, no one else seeing it, no one else throwing a flag except for that side judge. But when he threw it, we knew like, okay, well, it's for that, obviously. And then they go in and discuss it, and they decide, nah, not a penalty. This is why I understand Bill Belichick and Pete Carroll wanting there to be a coach's challenge on penalties, because the refs make mistakes. They need to be able to go back and watch. Now, look, that doesn't always matter. They can go back and rewatch the touchdown catch by JSN for 5 minutes on the broadcast and still somehow come to the conclusion that he didn't have possession of the ball when clearly he had possession of the ball. But I can understand that, this is going to make the game longer. There's a bunch of arguments against something like this.
Nope, I got a fix for you. And it's on my notes to say after we finish this. So I will stay tuned. I'll give it to you in about 2 minutes.
Okay. So again, just I understand the argument for coaches. They want to have this be reviewable. It needs to be reviewable by somebody.
Yeah. Okay. So how many total penalties were in this game that were accepted?
19.
That's the number.
Oh, that were accepted. 19.
19 accepted penalties. We know that there were a handful of declined penalties, and we went through a good 3, 4, 5 missed penalties, right? All of that happened. This DJ Dallas missed or picked up face mask happened with mere seconds left in the third quarter. How many flags were thrown in the fourth quarter?
2, right?
2. Yeah. All of those penalties happened in the first 3 quarters. So the 2 penalties in the fourth quarter are Dallas had the ball, 13 minutes left, 2nd and 4, defensive pass interference on Woolen, 35 yards. This was a bad call. This was Woolen. He went out, he touched Lamb's shoulder, but he did not pull him down. He did not impede him. He didn't even grab him. He literally found him and then looked for the ball. Generally, the announcers were not very good during this game, but they even nailed that one. They were like, there's no way that's pretty ticky-tack. That's a BS call. And it is. BS call on review. All right. The last called penalty of this game. Fourth quarter, Dallas, 4 minutes to go. 2nd and 2, delay a game. And yes, it was a delay of game. McCarthy tried to get the timeout. Didn't happen. Just like Pete Carroll tried to get the timeout before the field goal, delay a game. It happened to both guys. So there you have it. That's the entire game's worth of penalties, both accepted, declined, picked up, and missed calls. And I went through, did the math for this. Some of those, I was mad about the Wagner call. Good call. I was mad about the Trey Brown hold, I believe. Ended up being a good call. But you do the math. The officials in this one got 68% of their calls correct. I mean, that wouldn't even get you college credit. So I don't know what we're doing. And this is a position on the field the official where one bad call can change the course of a game. One bad call can change the course of somebody's season. You can't go out there and get over 30% of your calls wrong. It's egregious. If I see any of these officials in the playoffs, the NFL is probably going to have an earful. And if I remember to look up the officials list, I will have something to say about it during the playoffs. But here's my fix. This is an easy problem to fix. New York, aka the league, watches every single game. They have somebody dedicated to every game. Why not just put the white hat and that guy watching the game on a phone call? That's it. He's already got the headset. Headsets nowadays are fully capable of having more than one device connected to it.
Yep.
Just open line of communication to New York. They can quickly be like, yeah, you need to pick that one up. That's it. It adds 0 time to the game. The problem is the NFL officials need to check their egos in order for this to work. Even if it's another official. Right?
Yeah. Like the side judge. No, we didn't see that. We're not gonna count that one. So
yeah, just
good luck with that.
Communication. It would speed up replays. It would speed up calls throughout the game. Like they get together to conference. The guys right here, or the gal, I'm not going to genderize the person in New York. The individual who is on the other end of the phone call, they're talking. They have input to, hey, the replay clearly shows that hit the ground. The officials are all there and they're like, oh, yeah, I saw it bounce too. All right. Okay. Incomplete. Let's keep going. It's just an added voice. It's an added person to make sure you get it right. And it would do absolutely nothing as far as hindering the game or hurting the flow of a football game. The only thing it does is it will hinder the growth of the ego of the white hats in the NFL. I'm a little salty.
A little bit.
I believe that officials, on-field officials in all sports, should strive to keep the game as clean as possible. Should you want to call things as they happen, because they should be call infractions, but nobody at the end of the game should know your name. And I've been on a crew that actually got escorted off the field by the police at the end of a game because we had threats being hurled at us from the opposing crowd, who just happened to be on my side. So that was actually a lot of fun for me. I had coaches in my ear, I had parents coming in from the crowd. Things were being said. I kept flagging the sideline because they couldn't control. It was awesome. But that was counter to my point, but still, it does happen. It does happen. But the thing is, I didn't want to throw any of those flags. In fact, the original call that started that melee was actually thrown by the white hat. And I tried to call him off. I tried to be like, no, that really wasn't the penalty because my angle had it this way. But he was the white hat and he overruled me. And then after that was the barking, and that initiated the sidelines because I had 4 or 5 words, specific words. You could say anything you wanted. You put this specific combination of words together or a couple of individual words. Instant flag. I don't care what else comes out of your mouth. And those were the situations that were arising there at that game. So anyway, I digress. The NFL needs to find a way to fix this. Period. Yeah.
Yeah, it's getting look, I understand there's been a lot of rule changes over the last several years, but and the NFL still for some reason doesn't want to have professional officiators. They want, them to be independent contractors, blah blah blah, because God forbid the NFL doesn't make as much money as it possibly can every single year.
That's not the NFL. That's the NFL officiating union. Doesn't want full-time officials. The NFL wants full-time officials because you can hold full-time employees accountable.
Oh yeah,
and you can't really when they're contractors. Like
I guess I had that reversed. Sorry, NFL. You're not the bad guy for once. Congratulations.
Hey, I'll defend them when they need defending.
But look, that would be another way to fix this one. You just need guys that this is their job, and they need to be paid correctly for it. There's no reason why it's. I mean, you think back in the day when NFL players, so the lower guys on the roster had to have a second job in the offseason just to stay alive. This business makes enough money that should never be a thing. Get it fixed, NFL. A postseason of this is going to cost you guys viewers.
Well, we've seen it. We've seen the postseason affected by bad officiating. All right. So I don't want to do this. I just want to be done. Let's just end the stream. But we have to do it. We have to talk about how this team performed in certain areas. Now, I will start with the good because I feel like maybe we should inject a little positivity into this particular podcast.
Sure.
This was
always a good idea.
This was a week where Pete Carroll came out and said, I will have more influence on third down calls. And you know what? Seahawks rocked it on third down this game. I don't have the stats in front of me because I thought they were in my notes and they're not. But the Seahawks had some ridiculous third down conversion percentage in this game. Well, at least up until the last couple drives. But their fourth down conversion percentage was a 0. And Seahawks aren't really a team that goes for it on fourth down often. But they tried 3 times during this game. And they went well. Okay. They attempted to call plays on fourth down.
There we go. That's much closer. Yeah, that seems like that could be true.
No, you know what? That's unfair. I believe the players tried. The players put forth everything they had on those plays.
I could believe that.
They were poor play calls. Okay, so let's run through this. All of these were in the fourth quarter. The first fourth down play came on 4th and 1 with 7 minutes, 10 seconds left on the clock. Charbonnet, off tackle run for -1 yards. Right into the meat of that defense. Listen, it was lined up with the defensive front shifted to the left. Right? The announcers actually called this a bear front. It wasn't a true bear front because they didn't have enough guys on the line of scrimmage for it to be a bear front. But why wasn't Geno able to check out of this? Because he knows the play. He knows what the offense is trying to do. He's sitting there looking at the defense, which is lined up completely
right
on the
in
other
front
side
of where
the center, right where the ball's going. And he knows the protection called for this play has Colby Parkinson, who's the second tight end in line on that side. So he's the outermost tight end, is going to come across the formation to block any backside pursuit. So he's losing a blocker up front because they're going to let guys go free because they're shifting protection off to the left. And what happens? Well, exactly what you'd think would happen. Charbonnet gets the ball and he starts going off tackle. And guess what? There's like 3 Cowboys in front of him because there's no way that was ever going to work. So -1 yard, turnover on downs. Cowboys get the ball at midfield. That one, I believe, did not lead to a Cowboy score. No, will not lead to a touchdown. I mean, there were no punts. So did not lead to a touchdown.
Correct. Yeah, it led to a field goal.
Yes. The next one, fourth quarter, 3 minutes, 16 seconds on the clock. 4th and 4. This was Geno Smith's pass to JSN on a corner route. It was a corner route out of a smash concept, which had Lockett, who was in the slot, and Fant, who was lined up out wide, both on short in-breaking routes. This pass was overthrown because Geno just had to get it out of his hands because he had instant pressure, which just exemplifies how often Geno Smith had to deal with pressure that was 2.5 seconds or less. The problem with this, I see where they were going. They probably had, out of this formation, not on this play, but out of this formation, they had Fant blocking on a Lockett screen, bubble screen, with JSN running some sort of coverage off. This play was a smash concept with both those two guys running in breaking routes, JSN on a corner route about 15 to 20 yards downfield. First of all, why are you dialing up a route for 20 yards downfield on 4th and 4? Just going to put that out there.
Good question.
You have that route available to you just in case it breaks, but you need to get the yardage you need to get first. They were not scheming ways to get Geno Smith time to complete these passes.
Yeah, you're gonna need some extra blockers in there if you want to, especially if you want to go for the long route.
Yeah, especially against a blitz heavy team, a team with, what was that? The number 1 pass rush defense in the NFL. Maybe you should pay attention to statistics when you game plan for a game. All right.
As we've already discussed, Shane Waldron clearly does not scheme up game plans for individual defenses. He schemes up game plans for the entire year based on how he feels that week.
There you go. Now the one everybody's going to talk about.
Last play of the game.
Last play of the game. Well, last Seahawks play of the game. Last Seahawks offensive play of the game. Because Dallas had to go in there and take a knee. But fourth quarter. 1 minute, 11 seconds on the clock. Midfield. 4th and 2. This play had disaster written all over it. I don't care. Okay, I'm going to say what happened on the play first, and then I'll go into that. Okay, so play happens. Seahawks decide they want to leave the fastest pass rusher in the NFL unblocked, who's been having a really good game, completely unblocked, in hopes that he's going to break off his pass rush to follow the 3rd string running back out into the flat. Now, there's a little controversy over this play. Geno Smith, after the game in the press conference, said that is how it was designed. It's designed where the running back basically gets a free route, and it's designed to entice that pass rusher or that edge defender to break off their attack to go with the running back. Pete Carroll said on the radio show that he does the day after the games that wasn't the case. That no, we weren't hoping that would happen. Like, he was backtracking a lot on this play. And I don't think I have his quote in here. But yeah, that was a horrible play call. I don't care who you are. You don't leave Micah Parsons unblocked on any play. I don't care if you leave the other 10 guys on defense unblocked. You block Micah Parsons. Charbonnet was in the locker room. He was injured. He wasn't there at all in that final 2 drives, I think. But you can't go up and be like, hey, and DJ Dallas. And I like DJ Dallas. Yeah. I think he adds a lot to this team. But you don't go, hey, 3rd string running back. Why don't you go out there and win it for the team? Guy who there's a good chance won't be brought back this offseason because he's a core special teamer, and we've seen the team do that to guys before. The entire world knew that the Cowboys were going to pressure that call. This is a 0 blitz. 100 out of 100 times for the Dallas Cowboys. And then if you look at this, the worst part about it. So we had dual slants on the side that Dallas leaked out to. And that was, I believe, Metcalf and Lockett over there. Lockett was in the slot. Metcalf was wide. Play goes back. Geno Smith started in the shotgun. So he started with that cushion. Mm-hmm. And then he had a 3-step drop, which then would have been where either the screen pass or wherever else he was going to go was going to happen. He kept going because Micah Parsons was counting his chin.
Barreling down on him, yeah.
Yeah. So watch those two slants. The defender there drops back to cover DK Metcalf because he would be the deepest threat in that area because they were playing zone coverage behind. And which is the correct call. You know, we saw what DK Metcalf can do in the open field when you give him some space to get up to speed.
Yeah.
Tyler Lockett is wide open as Geno Smith is putting down that third step when he should be releasing that ball. Tyler Lockett is basically right there at the first down line to gain. But because they decided not to even chip Micah Parsons, Geno Smith didn't have any time to get that ball out. That was horrible. I don't care where you got that play from. KJ Wright breaks this play down pretty well on that post-game show because they got it from Sean McVay, and he remembers when the Rams ran it against the Seahawks. Throw that one away. Wad that play up, toss it in the trash can, go light the trash can on fire because that play needs to be nowhere near the Seahawks for the future. That was horrible.
Well, the other thing is, why wasn't Lockett the hot read on that anyway? That should have been your first read. First read should have been right in front of you. No need to turn your head, check anything else. Step back. If Lockett's open, throw the ball. That should have been the hot read. The hot read apparently was DJ Dallas, which makes zero sense to me anyway as a concept. But yeah, I mean, just let's not run that again. Or if we do want to run it again, maybe DJ Dallas stays in and blocks.
Dallas wouldn't have had the angle to block anyway. What they should have done is not had Abe Lucas down block, but instead take the threat that was right there.
Micah Parsons, yeah.
Yeah. The worst part about this is there's that controversy. Who was correct, right? Geno Smith said this right after the game in the heat of the moment. Normally people speak the truth when emotions are high. Pete Carroll contradicted some of the things that Geno Smith said the day after. But if you watch that play, Geno Smith never takes his eyes off DJ Dallas. That was the call. And that's it. You can't convince me otherwise. I don't care if Shane Waldron himself called me up today. Actually, you know what? Shane Waldron, please give me a call. Just do it. We'll have a nice, friendly conversation. I generally am actually a nice guy.
So. Yeah, I won't be on the call, so I'm sure it'll be friendly.
But there's no way anybody can convince me that play call was not for DJ Dallas out of the backfield.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. A couple
Which
things
is the wrong
note.
call.
Yeah. A couple things to note here. Seahawks had 14 missed tackles in this game, which may have contributed to the 41 points that the Cowboys decided to put up. 14 missed tackles. Well, hey, at least we know the Seahawks are number one in something. Penalties and missed tackles, right? One of the things that hurts is Jamal Adams that was credited with 4 of those missed tackles by PFF. Which kind of leads me into, I've mentioned KJ Wright and his post-game live stream on his KJ All Day
great podcast
channel. Yep. Definitely one of the favorites of this podcast here. He was a little critical of Jamal Adams after the game. He said after this one concluded, he was able to get together with Richard Sherman and have a good conversation because Sherman is part of the Thursday Night Football staff, right? He's one of the analysts there. And KJ Wright was able to attend this game in person. And so they met up and they talked about it. And, KJ had some pretty strong language for Jamal Adams because he was not doing the little things. He's not going out there doing the work that needs to be done. And then he even got to one point and said, what does Clint Hurt do as a play caller? One of his best players is a liability on the field.
His highest paid player, for sure.
Okay. A liability on the field. Adams looked bad at times during this game. All right. Like I said, 4 missed tackles.
Yeah,
a lot of that's
touchdown.
just he's not getting his arms, right? Listen, you don't tackle with your shoulder. Your shoulder is not reaching out to grab somebody. You don't tackle with your forearm because guys just bounce off, right? Fundamental tackling technique.
Wrap them up.
Wrap them up, drive through, and make sure you secure the tackle. Adams looks lost on simple routes that safeties cover every day in football, all the way down to high school and youth level.
Yeah,
we're talking running backs into the flat. He looked lost on tight ends on the seam for sure, but also tight end on a little wheel route, right? The wheel route is a staple. In fact, you can find that in any offense where the tight end immediately goes to the flat because he's normally a hot read with a route continuation if he's not needed.
Pressure valve. Yeah.
So hot read not there, turn it up the sideline, right? Simple wheel route. Jamal Adams was lost. That was on Ferguson's touchdown, I believe in the fourth quarter.
Yes, it was the final touchdown of the game.
I don't get it. How do you fix a player who has been a top player on this team and in this league in the past, definitely has the skills, has the fundamentals, has shown it before, but isn't playing up to that, and is also one of your highest paid players? I don't know. Adam, your thoughts on Jamal Adams?
Jamal's not the same guy that we traded for 4 years ago. We need to stop paying him like he is that guy. I know we kept pushing his cap back, and that's probably going to eventually come to bite us. I don't know what we're going to see this offseason. But I'll tell you what, if the rest of the season goes like the Cowboys game went, or the rest of the season just goes the way the season has gone thus far, I think we're in for some really big changes this offseason. I'm not going to make any predictions about that right now and say who it could be, but there are going to be some big changes. And I'm not just talking personnel, I'm talking staff. This stretch of 5 games is going to tell us who's still here in the future with the Seahawks. I think that we will be able to, I said I wasn't going to make any predictions. I'm not going to, but I think after these 5 games, hold me to this, Rob. I'll make some predictions about who's here next year and who's not. Because right now, it looks like there could be a new broom coming in. And I wouldn't be able to fault Jody Allen or whoever happens to be the owner when that happens, because there are some things broken with this Seahawks team. I'm hoping Pete Carroll's the right guy to fix it. I believe him and John Schneider are the right guys to fix it, but I won't know for another 5 games, and it's going to be a tough 5 games. We've got the Eagles coming up on primetime this coming Monday. We got the 49ers the following Sunday. Sorry, we got the 49ers this Sunday. The Eagles coming up the following Monday in primetime, and then we've got 3 games that are that I think no matter what the playoff implications are, those 3 games are going to be must-win games for the Seattle team and staff. And those are my final thoughts. I'm gonna leave that there.
All right. Well, I'm gonna hit a few topics real quick, and then you can give me your thoughts on those.
Okay.
There's a lot of people out there. I'm gonna shout out Seahawks Twitter and some Reddit type folks, Facebook, kind of social media things. That are putting a lot of hate and a lot of ire onto Tyler Lockett and Fant for drops during this game.
Sure.
There were only 3 drops by Seahawks wide receivers. DK Metcalf had one wide open on a slant in the second quarter, I believe.
Yep. So hit him in the hands. He dropped it. Yep.
Lockett had that one in the fourth quarter. And honestly, that it hit him in the hands. He should catch it, right? That's what you always say about wide receivers. Geno threw that too early. And if he threw it when he threw it for a reason, he should have put it on a different trajectory so that Lockett had a chance to uncover and get to that ball. Goes down as a drop. I'm not blaming him. It's just a rough deal of the cards on that one. And then Fant is being blamed for a drop in the fourth quarter on the final drive. In fact, it was 2 plays before the fourth quarter. Yeah. on 2nd and 2, where Geno Smith put the ball at where the catch point would have been about 4 inches off the ground. And Fant dove and he had it in his hands, couldn't secure it. It's going to go down as a drop. It shouldn't be, because a drop normally means it's a catchable ball. That didn't end up with that result. So this was a ball that would have taken an extraordinarily athletic moves there by Fant to get done. And it didn't quite happen. I say not a drop on that one, but everybody's giving them hate. Those are not the reasons that the Seahawks lost the game.
No.
All right. There's a couple things I wanted to talk about. We're going to wrap this up. This has been a really long episode. Sorry, I just had a lot to get off my chest. I want to shout out DK Metcalf. All right, he had a good game. Real good game.
He had a career game.
3
touchdowns, 134 yards.
Yep.
Yeah.
And on that first touchdown, great throw by Geno Smith to get it there. And then DK finished with, like we said, record leading or NFL leading 22.23 miles per hour.
Lightning speed.
Jaron Reed also had an awesome game. He was flashing everywhere. You saw big old 90, either getting held and not getting called, or flashed it in there. I believe he got one of the sacks, or at least generated that sack. He might not have got credited for it. He was everywhere. Thought he had a great game. This is Pete Carroll's first loss as a head coach after scoring 35 or more points. He is now 36-1 in that statistical category. That, I think, speaks more to him as a head coach than it does to the collapse in this game. But something of note. But I'm going to end. I'm gonna give Adam a chance to speak on this first, and then I'll wrap up with my thoughts. But Adam, Darrell Taylor, I think, played a pretty good game. He had a sack in the first half. He had, I think, a tackle for loss also. He was out there working, high motor, getting through it. But the only thing anybody's going to remember is that missed sack on Dak Prescott.
Darrell Taylor has been a real up and down player for the Seahawks. I think he's improving with his run defense, though I don't know if he's ever going to be a solid run defender. Dak Prescott's been making a lot of DNs look foolish this year. This is not the first time it's happened. It's not the last time it's going to happen. Should Darrell Taylor have been able to get him? Yes. I think when you get outrun by a quarterback, when you've got that kind of an angle, you're gonna get flack for it, and deservedly so. I'm certainly hoping that his teammates in the locker room gave him crap for it. I don't know that would have changed this game. So, Darrell Taylor. Look, I'm used to Darrell Taylor making amazing plays and making bonehead plays. This just happened to make him look like a bonehead. Not a big deal to me. Darrell Taylor is a fantastic rotational pass rusher. I certainly hope we find a way to keep him in the fold. I certainly hope we find a way to make sure he's not the starter.
Honestly, that's kind of where I see him. And I've said this before. Put Darrell Taylor in the position where Darrell Taylor succeeds, which is less than 30% of snaps in pass rush situations. He's going to put up 9, 10, maybe 12 sacks a year, because that's the kind of electric player he is. But when he has more time on the field, his numbers actually drop off. And a lot of that deals with tackling issues that he's had. We remember last year where those first few games, it seemed like every team was going to run at Taylor because they knew that was an automatic 3 or 4 yards because he just couldn't tackle. Well, you know what? He needs to learn how to tackle, period. Like, put that man in tackling 101.
Put the whole defense in tackle. 14 missed tackles, Robbie. The entire defense needs to be in tackling 101.
But I'm going to bring something else up, which I think is worth noting when we're talking about this subject. Yes, Darrell Taylor needs to get better at tackling. Definitely. But I believe that this situation where Dak Prescott got out of this tackle was probably a case of Darrell Taylor not wanting to get a flag. He wrapped the guy up and was expecting the whistle to come in because the NFL is protecting quarterbacks, right? But this was a game, and there's no reason he didn't think a flag was coming. This was a game where the officiating crew thought they were the stars.
Chances were a flag was going to happen on the play no matter what. So
I believe he let up once he was able to get his hands around Dak Prescott. Now, he then slipped down Dak Prescott's body and he was able to step out of it. But Tom Brady gets that call 10 out of 10 times. Aaron Rodgers gets that call 10 out of 10 times. Right? So what's the expectation? Are we protecting quarterbacks and blowing the whistle early to keep them from getting these extra hits? Or can defensive players just play football? What do you do in that situation? I say next time Darrell Taylor has a quarterback in his arms, he gives him the business a bit. He drives him into the dirt, and then when the NFL finds him, he allows the NFL Players Association to sue the NFL for inconsistencies in this, and because they're penalizing the wrong people in these situations. And this was a travesty that falls on NFL officiating for inconsistencies more than it is Darrell Taylor for missing a tackle. So I'm sorry, Darrell Taylor, if I gave you a little extra ire here, pointing out some weaknesses you've had in the past. It was mainly to prove the point that, which I believe was kind of the overarching theme of this entire podcast episode, which was NFL officiating. You need to get your act together. Real quick, James sent me a message about kind of his thoughts on the game. And for some reason, it's not pulling up. Apologies. He said basically his stance for the game and kind of what he wanted to say was the Cowboys showed up and they showed what their offense can do when tested, because they definitely were tested in this game. Even if their defense stinks it up. It's basically what James said. So thank you, James, for being on the podcast. Sorry you were having technical difficulties and were unable to continue with us. We'll have to have you on again. Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Seahawks, the podcast for fans like you. Adam and I love to talk about the Seahawks. We love to talk about the Seahawks with fans. So reach out to us on Twitter at LT Seahawks Pod. You can hit us up with our email or any other way to contact us. We'll have you on if you'd like to be on. Thank you for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. We really appreciate it. Go ahead and smash that subscribe button. Give this video a like if you agree with us. If you don't agree with us, shoot us a comment. We'll take care of it there. All right. Thank you. And once again, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.